Hey guys, guess what? That 10 for 10 podcast went over huge. People are loving it. Don't miss out. It won't be there forever. If you want to get the 10 for 10, go to VinnieTortorich.com and look down the right side of the homepage and you will see the 10 for 10 banner. What it is, the 10 top luminaries and their podcast. You don't have to go searching through almost 1,000 podcasts to find these. They're right there for you for $10. 10 great podcasts for $10. You can't miss this. Go do it now.
He's Hollywood's go-to guy for health and fitness. It's Fitness Confidential with celebrity fitness trainer Vinnie Tortorich.
Your good intentions have been stolen, and I'm here to help you get them back. I am Vinnie Tortorich, and folks, here we are again on the Friday show. This is the one where we go one-on-one with an expert in the field of health and fitness. And this guy is a particular kind of expert. Usually I have PhDs on. Sometimes I'll have on, an MD or, you name it. If they're out there, they've been on the Friday show. This guy's a little different. People have asked me to have this guy on for a while. I was like, who's this guy? What's he all about? But he's out there and he's helping people. So I figured, and then a good friend of mine mentioned, and we'll talk about that good friend, that mutual friend, Donna, mentioned, oh yeah, I got his information. It's like, how do you have his information? Donna's one of these crazy people that somehow she knows how to get in touch with people because she was crazy enough to get in touch with me and then invite me over to her house, which is like the craziest thing in the world, right? And I went. That's the other crazy thing. Folks, please help me welcome Tucker Goodrich. How you doing, Tucker?
Doing great, Vinnie.
Tucker.
How are you today?
I'm good, man. Now, as you know, I don't do any notes for this show. I don't sit there and ponder away and figure out. I like to have conversations with people and learn what they're up to. So tell me a little bit about you and how you came about all of this.
Okay. I have been in Wall Street for 30-odd years. For the last 20 years, I was the chief technology officer for a New York City hedge fund. And I was largely self-taught in technology. So I built systems. We ran, billions of dollars through our systems and making sure everything worked and figuring out what happened or, when things weren't working, it was on my head to figure it out and make it work again.
So wait a minute. Hang on right there. That brings up my first question. I trust, one of the things I use is something called TD Ameritrade. Are you familiar with those guys?
Yep, of course.
Okay. Am I to believe that they're hiring idiots like you with no degrees in anything to set up a system, and if something goes wrong, they call up, hey, Tucker, what the hell?
I got bad news for you, Vinnie. Wall Street's Band-Aid and bubble gums.
So should I be trusting this stuff? I mean, I got a lot of money in TD Ameritrade.
You should see some of the other banks.
Really?
I don't know those guys, but no, I actually started as a trader on Wall Street and then got sucked into the technology side of the business because I needed stuff to work and I was just really good at making things work.
So you're like, that makes me feel so much better about what I do. Every now and then we'll hire someone new and they'll look around and after a while they'll go, how did you become a thing on the internet? This is all ass backwards. And it's like, yeah, well, it's the house that Jack built. We started doing one thing and then we had to do something else. So you do a little stucco and patchwork to make that work. And then you need something else. And as you put it, there's a paper clip and some bubble gum and we can make that work. And before you know it, you have this whole business model based on paper mache and, bubble gum and everything else you use to get it going, right? And I thought maybe that was just me. But then I learned that, I was talking to a bigwig over at Amazon. And he goes, oh, I don't think you understand. Jeff Bezos is worth $1 gazillion. And they still do things like that over there. It's a lot of paper mache and smoking mirrors and bubble gum because it's the only way to make it work, right? I mean, no one really knows.
You got to make it work, and we're all winging it.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Look, I mean, I don't know how much you know about my story, but my thing is, I wrote a book, and then somebody over at William Morris Endeavor said, yeah, no one's going to buy your book because you don't exist on Google. They Googled me, and I did not exist. And they said, go figure out a way to exist on Google. So I came home, and I Googled how to get famous on Google. And I came up with a girl, and I'm not making this name up, called Jenna Marbles. Have you ever heard of her?
Jenna Marbles?
Jenna
No.
Marbles.
That sounds like she might have starred in a certain kind of movie.
You would think. Jenna was an early YouTube sensation, and we're talking about 6 years ago now.
Okay.
And what she did was, apparently she wanted to go to spring break. And she bought a bikini, spent a lot of money on that bikini. And then for whatever reasons, I don't know, Jenna couldn't get to spring break. But she was damn sure people were going to see her in her new bikini. So she sat on the edge of her bed in her bedroom, somehow propped up a camera, and did a small video going, I'm really bummed out that I don't get to go to spring break. She's sitting there in the bikini, and that thing had 1 million gazillion views. And I went, this is crazy. She's not, she's not overly intelligent. She's not doing anything smart or funny or anything. She's just doing this, right?
So, Vinny, are you telling me there's a YouTube video of you in a bikini out there?
Well, that's what I thought. I went, wait a minute. Well, actually, before that, I went, okay, this can't be the only person that's doing well on YouTube. So I looked around again, and there was a guy, he had like 10 million views or something. He somehow duct taped a squirrel to a set of tiny water skis and had the squirrel water skiing. And I went, okay, I don't have duct tape, and I certainly don't have a bikini, and it doesn't go with all the WAP hair all over my body. So I called my buddy Dean, who I wrote the book with, and I said, there's no way I'm going to become famous on the internet. I don't have a bikini. I don't have duct tape. I don't even have a squirrel. I mean, yeah, I didn't know what to do, right? So I was talking to my nephew the next day, and he goes, why don't you do a podcast? And I literally said to him, well, what's that? And he goes, well, you used to do a radio show back in New Orleans. And he goes, I was really young, but I kind of remember, everyone talking about it. You were pretty popular. I said, yeah. He goes, a podcast, that's like radio on the internet. And that's all the information I needed, period. And within a week, we had a podcast, me and Anna Vocino. And we still do the Monday show together. But that's my story of bubble gum and paper mache and stucco trying to pull something together. How did you become the guy? I mean, you're on Wall Street. You're doing electronic stuff. What happens?
Yeah, so I'm on Wall Street. I've got, a nice gig, and I wake up one morning and I drive to work, and I realize that I can't see. I've lost about a third of my vision. And
Really?
I'm like, okay, I'm driving down the road, and this car appears out of nowhere right next to me, and I realize everything on that side of the car I can't see.
So peripheral vision gone.
Just on one side. Just on my right side.
Okay, question. Wall Street is in New York, and you're driving.
I was actually, our office was in White Plains, which is outside New York City, in Westchester County.
Okay.
So I'm driving down the road.
You're driving along. You're losing peripheral vision. Do you drive to the hospital?
No, of course not. I went to the office. I figured it would clear up. I had no idea what it was. It had never happened before.
Okay.
So I go to the office. I get on a conference call, and partway through the conference call, somebody asked me a question, and I can't answer. I can't get the words out, and I don't know what's happening. So I managed to say, I'm sick. I have to leave, and hang up the call. I go walk to my boss's office, and I managed to get out. I can't talk. And a guy who works for me was an EMT. So he says, oh, he's having a stroke. Loads me into his car and drives me off to the local medical school, which has a good stroke department. And I spend the next 4 days in the stroke ward with all these students poking me going, we never see anybody your age in here. Most everybody in here is in their 70s or 80s.
Well, how old are you at the time?
38 years old.
Wow. Now, folks, I know this because I asked Tucker up front. You're 50 years old now, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So you're 38 years old. You're a young man, and you're in a medical school. I mean, why aren't you like at Sloan Kettering or somewhere up there?
It was Westchester Medical, but apparently they had one of the best stroke programs in the area.
Okay.
So, and this guy who worked for me, who had been an emergency medical technician, happened to know that.
So he says this is where you're heading. So you go there. Does your peripheral vision come back? Are you speaking in full sentences? What's going on during these 4 days?
Yeah, after a couple of hours, things started coming back. I was left with a little bit of a speech impediment, which got better over time. But the professor, who was also my doctor, was, working with me and trying to figure out what had happened. And they never did figure out what had happened. All the tests that they do for a stroke all came back negative.
So they're saying you had no stroke.
They're saying we have, I will quote him. Do you know what his final diagnosis was?
Go on.
He says to me, that is so weird. That was his final diagnosis.
You go to a doctor at the top stroke clinic in your area, and his diagnosis is, that's so weird.
That was what it all boiled down to.
Are you scared that this could happen again? Anything?
Yeah. Well, that was part of the conversation I had with him. Is he goes through once you have a stroke, you have a 4% chance of having a stroke every year afterwards, right? So it's like every year you're playing Russian roulette. Right. You don't have all that many bullets in the gun, but there are bullets in the gun.
Right.
So you never know what's going to happen. Right. So, so 2 years pass. I have a couple more attacks similar to this. I have no idea what's going on. None as bad as the first one. And then I get acute diverticulitis, which is basically where you have these little pouches in your colon and one of the pouches perforated. Right. So I've got the contents of my colon once again at the office. I'm lying on the floor in my office in, writhing in pain. Managed to get up, drive to my doctor in Connecticut, where I live.
So how long ago is this after the stroke? You had the stroke when you were 38.
This was 40.
All right, so 2 years.
Right.
All right. Are you looking around are you looking at genetics and history or my mom and dad? What's going on? What are you looking at that point?
Well, all of my grandparents died in their late 80s, early 90s.
Right.
And my parents are both still alive. So I never worried about it.
Right.
I figured I was a shoo-in for at least late 80s.
Yeah.
And I ate healthy. I ate to the food pyramid. I ditched sugar from my diet when I was 18 or 19 years old.
Yeah.
Because of cavities. So I probably ate about as well as it was possible to eat.
Can I talk about calories for a second?
Yeah.
I remember as a young guy, I've always been obsessed with teeth and tooth health and the whole thing, and I can't stand to have anything between my teeth. And when I was a kid, I would brush twice a day. I would even bring a brush to school. And if I had a few minutes in between classes or something after lunch, I would brush. Because I read somewhere that 3 times a day, right, you should brush. I flossed back then and still do twice a day. Yet every time I went to see Dr. Edwards, the family dentist and good friend of the family, I would have a cavity or two. Now think about that. A cavity or two. And I would say to Dr. Edwards, I would go, what gives? He goes, sugar. Sugar causes cavities. And I would go, but I don't eat that much sugar. And he goes, well, what type of fruit do you eat? I go, I have at least one, if not, because I was fastidious about my health as a young kid. You know, we're talking 15, 16, 17 years old. I was in the gym working out. I was all about eating right. And he was always going, you eat apples, you eat oranges? Oh, yeah, I eat a ton. I eat sometimes an apple before my workout, apple after my workout, sometimes two oranges a day. He was like, oh, that's why. I went, what? Huh? What? How's that? He goes, an apple has sugar and acid in it. An orange has sugar and acid. So you're eating that to boost up right before you work out, right? And I go, yeah. And he goes, okay, you have that in your mouth. You have all that acid and all that sugar just jammed between your teeth the entire time you're working out. And he goes, believe it or not, that's where all the cavities are. They're kind of in between your teeth. They're not anywhere on the surfaces. They're always hard for me to get to. So literally the thing I was taking for my health, and that's when I started getting away from apples and bananas. And I started getting into, if I ate an apple or a banana, I would brush right away. But ever since I went low carb back in, when I started playing around with it, I haven't had a cavity 20 years, 18 years. So how can you have all those cavities as a kid, have dental issues, and then not have any dental issues whatsoever? It's
obvious. It's obviously your genes have changed.
Yeah, I'm genetically different.
It can't be the carbs.
Yeah, it cannot possibly be the apple a day will keep the doctor away. Au contraire, it brings the doctor around. I think a doctor came up with that saying.
Right.
All right. So anyway, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but I don't think I've ever told that story on this show.
Yeah, so I had a similar experience. One day I was like, I hated going to the dentist. I hated getting drilled. So I just said, I'm going to stop eating sugar.
Yeah.
Okay. That was 30 odd years ago. We got a candy bowl in the office and I started pulling mints out of the candy bowl and I got a cavity. So I've had one cavity in 30 years.
Wow.
After having, I don't even know how many I had when I was a kid.
Okay.
So anyway, diverticulitis, this is I've got another old person's disease, right?
Yeah.
They say apparently 80% of people who are in their 80s have diverticulitis. And here I am, 40 years old. And they're saying, oh, yeah, we're starting to see it more often with younger people. Just like they're starting to see strokes more often with younger people and Alzheimer's and diabetes. And, there's a pattern going on here.
Yeah.
So I wound up 6 months later having to have 8 inches of my colon cut out after, the doctor comes in and he says to me, I remember this like it was yesterday. He says, well, Tucker, you're going to have to stop eating the fatty fried food. And I look at him and I'm like, I don't eat fatty fried food. It makes me nauseous. I haven't eaten that stuff for 20 years. He goes, well, you're going to have to eat more fiber. And I was like, all I flip and eat is salads and whole wheat. What are you talking about? So at that point, I had no idea. So I started eating, more whole wheat and more salads and just got worse. So 6 months later, they had to cut a hunk of me out. But it didn't make me better.
Right.
So at the time I had the surgery, I'd been sick. I'd had intestinal illness for 14 years.
Yeah.
Good chunk of my adult life. 2 years later, I got an email from a guy pointing me to Stefan Guyonet's blog, who had a post about dental issues and how dental issues were entirely related to diet and not genetics. And it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. Because I always thought I had bad genes.
Yeah.
So I started following his blog. And he, and because I'm skeptical and diligent, I not only read everything he posted for 6 months, I read every study he posted, right?
Oh, wow. That's really going deep.
Oh, yeah. I read everything.
Yeah.
I got in touch with him. I asked him for books I could read about this stuff. He pointed me at Weston Price, and Mark Sisson's Primal Blueprint had, come out like the week before when I started doing this.
What year was that, by the way?
That would have been 2008.
Okay.
Yeah, 2010. 2010. So the first thing I decided to do, I went down to the cafeteria at work one day, and it was a typical, not great cafeteria. And I had been reading all of his posts about seed oils and weed and how bad they were for you. And, I went to make myself a salad, and I got to the end of the salad bar, and I look at all the dressings, and I said to myself, these has got to be the cheapest, worst for you oils.
Oh, yeah.
That it's possible to put in a squeeze bottle.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to do an experiment. I'm going to stop eating these today. Right. And I had a dry salad with some vinegar on it. And that was 2 days later, my 16 years of intestinal disease ended. I had I don't want to get into too much information here. I had chronic diarrhea for 16 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
It took 2 days for it to go away.
It's crazy, right?
Absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah.
Absolutely blew my mind. But what was really interesting, I had, like most people, I'd put on like a pound a year. I was 40-ish, so I was 20 pounds overweight, right? Pound a year, typical, very active. Ran, biked, skied, went to the gym a couple hours a week. Didn't make a difference. Never lost a pound from exercising.
Right.
You'll be shocked to hear that, I know.
Yeah, I've been yelling that. My clients used to say to me, you're the worst businessman in the world because you make your money by coming here and counting backwards from 10, and you're constantly telling us that exercise is the worst way in the world to lose weight.
Yeah.
And it's like, you need to listen to everything I tell you, not just one part of it.
Right. Yeah, but it's totally true. And I tried to go low carb before, but I'd never been able to get over the carb cravings. And of course, I tried cutting calories, and that doesn't work because you're miserable.
Right.
But this time, 5 or 6 days later, I realized I haven't eaten any carbs in 5 or 6 days.
Right.
Just because I had no interest. I had no appetite for them. Right. So I was like, okay. So then I had I went down to the cafeteria, and I had a sandwich with whole wheat bread, of course. And I ate that, and I thought I was having a heart attack, the reaction I had to.
And how long you had gone without having that, and then when you had it, take me back through that?
About a week.
So you were clean for a week.
Clean for a week. I got a head rush. I got, my heart started pounding. I had to go lie on the sofa. And I was like, what is going on here? Because, I liked Stefan's stuff. When Stefan said that he thought wheat was a big problem, I thought he was crazy.
Yeah. I
literally called myself Mr. Whole Wheat in the house. Yeah. I was like, kids, eat whole wheat. It's good for you.
Yeah.
What an idiot. So at that point, I was like, okay, now it's an experiment. I've already figured out the seed oils. Getting rid of the seed oils cured my inflammatory bowel disease in 2 days after 16 years. That's a win. But I can't believe I had this reaction a week. So this time I go another week intentionally. And then at the end of the next week, I had a couple slices of pizza. Well, you can imagine how that went.
Yeah, I can't imagine that went too well.
No, that did not go very well. The last 2 slices of wheat pizza I've had.
Wow.
So then I start experimenting with it. You know how this goes. I didn't know what I was doing, right? So when I stopped eating seed oils, what I hadn't realized was that basically the only fat in my diet was from salad dressings.
Right.
Right. It's all omega-6 fats.
Yeah.
So when I stopped eating that, I went like 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden I got rabbit starvation. Do you know what that is? That's when you eat nothing but, so I'm not eating carbs, I'm not eating fat, all I'm eating is protein and vegetables.
Yeah.
I go 2 weeks, and all of a sudden I start getting this mad craving for fats one day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, what do I eat? Drive down to the supermarket, and I buy a bottle of coconut oil and come home and start eating it with a tablespoon.
All right. So where did you hear about coconut oil back then? Because, see, guys like me, we knew about the stuff way back when because bodybuilders would use it. whenever they were cutting for a competition, they would use MCT oil and Energol.
Right.
And all, that was like an old trick of the old bodybuilders back in the day. How did you learn about it?
Stefan had a post about how, one of the things, he had a great post that I think he's since taken down about Asians who ate diets rich in coconuts and how good their skin looked.
Yeah.
And then he went through this mouse model of skin cancer and showed how much omega-6 fats were in the diet controlled how fast the mice would get cancer.
Wow.
That was the article that convinced me to stop eating seed oils.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So then I started, probably, so the typical stuff that you would expect, I started feeling better. My carb cravings went away, which was really weird, I thought, at the time. Now I understand why it's happened. I lost all my excess weight in 2 months. 2 months later, I got up one morning, I put my pants on, I buckled my belt, and I let go, and it fell to the floor. So
Wow.
I had to take all my clothes to the tailor.
How much weight did you lose, Tucker?
The 20 pounds.
Okay, so how much did you weigh when you started? I wanted to know where you were and where you ended up.
Oh, I was at like 185, and I got down to 168 in 2 months.
Okay, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
And it literally, I mean, like, people are walking up to me in the office going, "What's going on with you? You look so great. You're so much thinner. You look so much healthier."
Yeah.
I started getting carded again when I would go buy alcohol.
Wow.
Right? I started looking like 15, 20 years younger.
You started de-aging. Yeah.
I have gay guys carding me at bars.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is awesome.
That's great. That is great.
Yeah. So then my Barefoot Ted probably, right? From the book Born to Run.
I know Barefoot Ted only from the book. I've met Christopher McDougall, and believe it or not, Serena was in contact with Caballo Blanco right before he died. They were trying to get an agent for him, because he was becoming a big deal, and then he passed away. Yeah.
Ted actually lives in Santa Barbara now. He moved back down from Seattle.
Oh, cool.
Anyway, so he was doing a barefoot running event in Central Park, and I'd gotten to know him at that point. So my ex-wife and I went in to do this thing, and we're standing in Central Park for 2.5 hours, and it's April, so the leaves aren't out on the trees yet. So we're standing in the sun for 2.5 hours. I hate sunscreen, so I'm not wearing any sunscreen. For your listeners, I'm blonde guy, pale, blue eyes. It looks like I evolved in a cave somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
you're almost opaque with red hair and a red beard. And
exactly.
Like Edgar Winter looks like a black man next to you.
Yeah, don't get too carried away. So my wife, on the other hand, is dark-skinned, dark-haired Colombian, my ex-wife now. And she loved the beach. I wouldn't go to the beach because in 45 minutes I'd turn into a lobster. Right. So this was like an ongoing thing in our marriage, that she loved the sun and I was scared to death of it.
Right.
So we go out there and stand in the sun side by side for 2.5 hours, go home. She comes up to me and she goes, "Look how burned I got standing out there." And I turn to her and I say, "Look at me. I didn't burn at all."
Huh.
Side by side. Right. And I thought back to Stefan's post about the mice. Yeah. And how the seed oils controlled how fast they sunburned and how fast they got skin cancer.
Wow.
I don't use sunscreen anymore.
That's amazing.
It literally takes, I'll get a sunburn after 6 or 7 hours at altitude in the mountains now.
That's amazing, because you're not like me. You're like my buddy Jim growing up. You have, you're red, red hair, red beard, white. And, I don't want to go off on a tangent about sunscreen, but, and I don't tell people not to use it. I stay away from saying that. I refuse to use it. I've been saying since, when I was a kid, sunscreen was not a thing. Nobody even knew of it. As a matter of fact, it was just the opposite. people come up to me and go, hey, we have this sun oil that actually it's called Prism. It actually magnifies the sun. It's called Amplifier, Tan Amplifier. It makes you tan faster. That's what was going on when I was a kid. Now everybody's like, I have SPF 3,000. It's 3. You can stay in the sun for 3,000 days, and it would be like being in a cave. It's like, no. This can't be healthy. I don't use it.
And the kids are getting rickets now.
Yeah, because they don't get enough vitamin D. So rickets is on the climb. And I'm telling people all the time, you need sun to hit your skin. I've been yelling about that for years. I don't preach about it on the show. Of course, I'm coming out with a vitamin D3 at purevitaminclub.com to combat the problem of the fact that, number one, no one goes outside anymore. They're too busy with looking at a screen all day. And number two, when they do go outside, they're slathering on SPF 5 million. It makes no sense to me at all.
Right. So I solved my vitamin D problem. At the same time I was testing my levels. Lo and behold, I found, now that I could go out in the sun and not roast, my vitamin D levels went back up to normal inside of a year.
Wow. Crazy.
No big deal. So the benefits were huge. The sun thing convinced my wife that the whole family should do this. And I started doing some more experiments. It took 2 years. My daughter had really bad allergies. She had a minor nut allergy. She was allergic to cats. She had asthma. She was on all these medications. When we put the family on, basically the paleo diet at the time, she was like, why should I do this? And I said, you know what? I think it's going to cure your allergies. 2 years later, her allergist fired her.
Really?
Yeah. She had no symptoms in the middle of allergy season. He said to me, I've never seen anybody's allergies resolve this fast. He was like, he did the nut test. He said, you can eat nuts. Done. So the benefits were huge. But I wanted to know why. Right? Because it didn't make any sense.
Right. Your analytical mind got to you.
Yes, exactly. Curiosity killed the cat. So I started getting curious. So I started going and buying. I wanted to know why this was happening. Right?
Right.
Not just enjoying that it was happening. And I was very active in some online forums, and I started talking to people. And I helped this woman who had fibromyalgia, put that into remission. And this. You get emails from these people. They're
by the thousands.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. So I started looking into. Okay. So first thing is, I was not eating any sugar for 30 years.
Right.
I still got fat. I still got sick. Right. My cavities went away. So that was a plus. I probably didn't get as fat as some other people did, but I still got pretty sick. When I went through that period where I had all those health problems, I had borderline osteoporosis. I broke 6 bones in 2 years. Yeah. Cause I ski, I mountain bike, I run. I was breaking fingers and toes and ribs all over the place.
Unbelievable.
So I was not a healthy person, and I was doing everything you were supposed to be doing.
Right.
Diligently. So how could this how could it not work?
Yeah.
So first I looked, sugar, definitely the dental, look, sugar rots your face. Any food that rots your face is not good for you.
Right.
End of story.
Yeah.
You can move on pretty easily, but sugar didn't prevent all the rest of this stuff from happening to me, right? So then what I thought was interesting was why, when I stopped eating the seed oils, why did I stop craving carbohydrates? Right?
That's interesting. I've never heard that before.
Okay, so yes, this is where curiosity started getting. There's a doctor, or a doctor called Christopher Ramsden, who did a series of experiments with this junior scientist who's, I think her name is Anna Alfheim. Her last name is definitely Alfheim. So they took mice and they fed them a diet, because there's a standard diet that they give to mice if they want to make them fat, sick, and obese and diabetic. Okay. So they took this standard diet and they varied the amount of seed oils that were in the diet, right? The more seed oils that were in the diet, the fatter the mice got. And the reason the mice were getting fat is that the fats in the seed oils convert into a chemical in your body called 2-AG.
Okay.
2-AG we all know about because it's a analog to the THC in marijuana, right?
Okay.
What does marijuana give you?
It gets you high.
And the munchies.
Yeah. I've never, would you believe that I'm 55 and I've never smoked a joint in my life?
You're a lucky man.
I've never consumed marijuana in any form, shape, or form. I've never had a cookie or a brownie or anything. No THC of any sort. Right. I think I'm the only guy my age, by the way.
Your age? Yeah, definitely. How did you live in California?
How did I live in New Orleans and go to college and play college football? I mean, that's the way football players would relax after practice. They would, have a joint.
Right.
I was just never into it. It just wasn't my thing.
So it turns out if you take THC or 2-AG and you inject a mouse with it, feed the mouse so it's full and doesn't want to eat anymore, and you inject a mouse with it, it starts eating.
Wow.
Right? It gets the munchies. Right? But, I mean, I'm sure you know friends who get the munchies. When people get the munchies, they don't go eat a steak.
No.
Typically.
No. They want the fastest thing they could put in their mouth right now.
Right. And then with the rodents, it's the same thing. When they get the munchies, they crave carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Right? So there's a biochemical basis for why now. Okay. So then as I kept reading in this, I'll say up front, I eat a low carb diet.
Right.
I've been no sugar for 30 years, no grains for 8 years.
Right.
I think it's a great idea. I don't think it's the reason everybody's getting fat and sick. Because, and here's the reason, because the Japanese, who have the longest life expectancy in the world, they get 70 to 80% of their calories from carbohydrates.
Right. And
their obesity rate's 3.4%.
Very low.
Very low. So how do we figure that? So how do we reconcile these things? This is how I started looking at things. You've got an argument. It's just like we had the French paradox, right? They said saturated fat is bad for you, right, unless you're French, right?
Which is crazy.
Which is crazy. And they tried to blame red wine or, say, oh, it's the red wine. You couldn't drink enough red wine for resveratrol to work and to prevent obesity, right?
Absolutely.
So in the
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So so there are a couple of different examples where people ate a high carb diet and were healthy, right? So that's what I was trying to figure out, was to reconcile the facts and my experience and try and understand why what happened to me happened. Because what I did, nobody does. Nobody stops eating seed oils one day, right?
Right.
And then sees all the benefits that happen. I mean, you've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, that's unusual. Yeah, that's very unusual.
Right. So I started, putting my ideas up on a blog. I've got a blog with a couple of thousand posts and reading everything I could get my hands on for 8 years. So 8 years later, now I'm on Twitter and I'm trying to get people to pay attention to these omega-6 fats. Because I think it flies under the radar. So why does what you do work? I would argue the reason is junk food's got 3 ingredients, basically, right? It's carbohydrates, wheat flour, whatever, sugar, and seed oils.
Yeah.
If you cut the first two, you're cutting the third one almost by definition.
Yeah.
But the problem is, if you don't explicitly know that you shouldn't be that you shouldn't be eating the seed oils, you wind up like this runner who called me, who DM'd me the other day from South Africa, and he was like, I listened to your story about your sunburn going away. I'm an ultra runner down here in South Africa, and I used to get these horrible sunburns. I'm following Professor Noakes's thing, and I listened to you. So one day I said, we're all eating safflower and sunflower oils down here. I'm going to try cutting those out of my diet. And now I don't burn on my runs anymore.
Wow. It's crazy.
Right.
So let me ask this question, because it's
Yeah.
going to be the first question that anyone's going to bring up.
Right.
Whenever there is a ratio where omega-6s work in conjunction with omega-3s. Take fish oil, for instance, or even olive oil has a percentage. And people are going, whoa, if he's saying I can't have omega-6s, what's he telling me? What are we doing here? So can you explain that?
The ratio doesn't seem to be all that important, which people are going to find somewhat surprising. There's a disease called age-related macular degeneration. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, it's when your eyes go out on you.
Right. Your retinas start to break down.
Yeah.
And it's the leading cause of blindness in the United States.
Right.
And what they have figured out is that if you have a low omega-6 fat intake and a normal omega-3 fat intake, you don't get it. Right? It's the level of omega-6 fats in the diet that is causing it. The higher it is, the more likely you are to get age-related macular degeneration. So the ratio is important, but if you're getting too much omega-6s, you can't eat enough omega-3s to undo the damage.
Okay, so let's start talking about let's first talk about the bad oils. If you had to pick the top 5, 6, or 7 bad oils, the oils you should never touch, what would they be?
Well, it's shorter to talk about the ones I would touch.
Well, let's just take the common. We're going to get to that second. But, I want Tallulah to put this in the show notes, too. If you could just give me the ones that... Yeah, what do you avoid? Like, when people hear this, what do they avoid?
Corn oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, sunflower oil. What do they have? Grapeseed oil now they sell as a healthy alternative.
Right.
That's got the highest omega-6 PUFA content of any oil.
Really?
Yeah. What do you use? Olive oil, butter. I make salad dressings out of mostly dairy fats. Even if I go to a restaurant, I'll say, I won't, because you've talked about how the olive oil market is, you never know what you're going to get.
Oh, there could be rapeseed oil in there. There could be something close to diesel in there, from what we can tell.
Exactly. So what I do often when I go to a restaurant is I just say, look, give me some sour cream and a lemon or some, vinegar, and I'll just put that in the salad and make my own salad dressing on the spot with some salt and some pepper, and, it's better than what they've got.
That's a great idea. I tell people all the time when I do the consults, I'll say to them, listen, when you go to a restaurant, first off, and they think I'm shilling at the time, they think I'm shilling for Villa Capelli, right? Because they've been a big sponsor of this show. I'll say, look, bring your own olive oil with you. And they'll go, no, the restaurants have olive oil. No, the restaurants, that it may say olive oil, it may smell like olive oil, it may even look like olive oil. And don't think that if you're going to a high-end restaurant that somehow that oil is miraculously better, because it's not. Maybe there's some really high-end Michelin star restaurants where they have the real stuff, but by and large, you're not going to get the good stuff. Bring your good stuff with you. I bring, and people go, "Oh, how do I carry it?" I do this all the time. When you go on the flight, I just got back from a flight. I had Andy and I had my my camera guy on the flight with me. We went to Utah because we bought some salt because we're making a salt tablet. And I said, listen, guys, when you get on the plane, buy 2 of those little airplane liquors. And they go, which ones do you want? I went, I don't want any of them. Just buy 2, whatever they have, buy 2 of them. Here's my credit card, Steve. Just buy 2 of them. We're going to each buy 2. When you guys are done with them, give them to me at the end of this trip because I need 6 of. I take those little airplane liquor things, fill them up with my oil, and I take them everywhere. They fit in your pocket. They work fine. They're airtight. You won't get messy oil all over you, and it's all you need to do. And then people say, well, yeah, I started doing that, but then at the restaurant they have the vinaigrette, and I go, no.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
No, the vinaigrette is full of sugar.
That's going to be the worst.
Yeah, that's the worst choice. No, but they make it themselves. Yeah, I know. It's the worst choice you could possibly ever get in a restaurant.
Yeah, they make it with soybean oil and vinegar.
And
Enjoy,
sugar.
knock yourself out.
And sugar. You know,
Right.
That's how they get it to taste good. They add some, but my restaurant uses honey. Yes, honey, sugar, same thing.
Sugar.
Your liver does not know,
Right.
and look, I mean, people go, yeah, but it's canola oil. Yeah, canola oil, rapeseed oil, same thing. Just rape didn't sound good for an oil, so they gave it a cooler name. I'm always trying to explain this stuff to people.
Right.
It's not.
So, other interesting thing, as I was doing all of my reading, what I discovered is in the United States, the 2 biggest killers of people are heart disease and cancer.
Right.
Right? Okay. Everybody takes it for granted, especially doctors nowadays.
Right.
What most people don't realize is that within living memory, there are populations of people that had almost no heart disease and minuscule levels of cancer. Right?
Yeah.
What caused the change? There were a couple of great studies I found. One was looking at heart disease from the 1960s in the United States, and they compared Americans to Koreans, Japanese, and I think it was Nigerians or Ugandans, right? They compared African Americans in New Orleans to Africans in Uganda. Guess what the heart attack rate was in Uganda?
I'm going to guess that it was close to 3% or less. I'm just going to guess.
0.
Okay, so I was pretty close with my 3%.
Yeah, they looked at, if I remember correctly, 5,000 hearts at autopsy, and they couldn't find anybody who died of a heart attack.
Right. Now, why did they
This was
study
in the
New
1960s.
Orleans? Because we know that Africans that live in New Orleans came from that same area, or we just picked New Orleans because it was convenient?
I think they just picked New Orleans because it was convenient.
Okay, can I guess at what their heart disease rate was?
It was pretty high.
I'm gonna go conservative and say it's like 150%.
Yeah.
Because it seems like everybody I know in New Orleans dropped dead of a heart attack. White, black, I don't care what color you are. They're dropping dead around the clock.
Right. So they did a couple of studies. They came up with the idea that, since saturated fat is going to kill you, right?
Right.
Every doctor knows this. What are we going to give you instead? Oh, we'll give you corn oil. We'll give you these polyunsaturated, they're vegetable oils. They must be good for you. They're made from vegetables.
Right.
So they did a couple of studies where they looked at this, and the results weren't all that clear. What seed oils will do for you reliably is lower your cholesterol, right?
Which means nothing.
Oh, better. So this same scientist, Christopher Ramsden, went back and looked at 2 of the most famous studies showing the benefits of seed oils for heart disease.
Right.
Okay. And sure enough, what they had done was they said, oh, we give them seed oils and their cholesterol goes down, so it must be good for their hearts. Right?
Right.
But they didn't count, they didn't report what the heart disease rate was in these groups. So what he did was went back and found that they had counted, and he looked at the original data. Their cholesterol went down, but their heart disease rate went up.
Wow. Why don't we hear more about this stuff? Why is this stuff not out there? What am I missing here?
That's why I'm on your show, Vinny, because there's this enormous body of research out there. There's another scientist, a guy named Malhotra, who was the head of the Indian Railroad medical system. He had 1 million people under his care in their medical system, right? They went to his hospitals. They kept very good records of who died, who had heart attacks. So he said, well, I've got, 500 million people in India. I've got 1 million people in my hospital system. These Westerners are saying saturated fat's bad for you. Okay. The north part of India eats lots of dairy and saturated fat. The south part of India eats lots of carbohydrates, mostly rice, and seed oils.
Yeah.
Let's look at their heart attack rates, right?
Right.
Northerners eat all the saturated fats. They should have the high heart attack rates. The heart attack rate in the Southerners was 15 times as high as in the North.
Oh, listen, I was in India a few years ago giving talks, right? And the women, they would walk around wearing the sari. And
yep.
At first I was looking around going, man, there's a lot of pregnant women here. But then I started noticing their faces, and I would go, wait a minute. These women aren't of childbearing age. And they had that visceral fat that made them look pregnant. And then I looked around and I went, wait a minute. There's cattle running around in the street. These people worship cattle to the point that they won't eat cattle. They only eat a vegetarian diet. And these people, they physically looked horrible. Horrible. And then when you start asking, Indians, they're really dark skinned, you would think, ask them their age, and I would go, this woman's got to be 60. And how old are you? Oh, 42, 41. 41, 42, and you look like you're fat. Your sari is full of fat, and you look like you're 60 to me.
And they've had a huge shift from dairy fats, ghee, right, the clarified butter,
right,
to seed oils in India.
Crazy.
And they're all getting fatty liver from it, which is what you're seeing. We've all seen people with the belly that sticks. My dad, before I put him on a low carb diet, he looked like he was about to deliver.
My dad is that way, by the way, and he refuses to listen to me. And by the way, people always say, "Why are you so angry?" What you're always, it's like, because I'm angry at my own family. My family is part of the problem. I look at, I have a younger brother that, unless I get hit by a bus, and I have cancer, he's going to die before me. And I love him to death. But, he's finally started paying attention to me a little bit, and he's gotten his way down into the 200s. I don't know where it is in the 200s, but it needs to get down into the 190s or 180s before he's really healthy. But I'll look at these people and go, God, I love you to death, but what are you doing? And you have a son who's been doing this his entire life, but no one listens to their kid. How did you get your father to listen to you?
The doctor told him he was going to have to cut his foot off.
Oh, my dad, please. My dad's got like 2 or 3 stents in his heart. My dad has gone to the maker a couple of times and somehow made it back.
The stents didn't do it. It was my dad now has 8 stents in his leg.
Jesus Christ.
Because he was getting atherosclerosis in his leg, and it cut off the blood to his foot, and his foot was starting the process of dying. I mean, that's what, you had Sean Baker on your show.
Oh, yeah, a couple of times.
Who Gary Fettke is.
Gary's been on the show, too.
They're in this because they're sick of cutting diabetics' feet off.
Yeah.
And my dad was at that point where he had no pulse in his foot.
Well, you see, Gary's a particularly funny case because Gary has been sanctioned by the government over in Tasmania not to tell people to eat like this. They're saying, look, Gary, keep cutting their feet off.
Yeah, as I recall, the phrase was he inappropriately cured diabetes.
Yeah. Why is it so crazy? Why is my question.
Yeah. People are crazy, unfortunately. So the other interesting study that I found, there's a study looking at Asians, because basically what happens is the American diet, right? The modern American diet, what I call it, because it's mad, consists of sugar, wheat flour, and seed oils. And everywhere that goes around the world, people get sick, and they all get sick the same way, right?
Right.
Asia's interesting because it's one of the last places where that's happening. So there was a study I found that looked at breast cancer rates in Asian women who moved to the West.
Right.
Right? So we control for the genes. They've got the same genes.
Right.
The breast cancer rates were 7 times higher in the West than they were in traditional Asia. They are now going up in Asia as they're adopting our diet, right?
Wow.
Why could this be the case? Okay. When you eat seed oils, they concentrate in the tissues in your body, including in your mitochondria, which you as an athlete know all about.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
In your mitochondria, they break down, they damage your mitochondria and cause mitochondrial dysfunction. In the process, they turn into carcinogens, right? Interesting fact, in China, there's a big health problem in China amongst women is that women don't smoke and get a lot of lung cancer.
Interesting.
And they get lung cancer because they're cooking with seed oils. The primary toxin in cigarette smoke is called acrylane. Acrylane is one of the primary toxins that's produced by seed oils in your body. And there are a couple of others. They kill your cells. They damage your DNA. From what I've been able to find, DNA damage, the primary cause of DNA damage is seed oils in the body.
I would believe that, yeah.
In liver cancer and colon cancer, there's a P53 gene, which is a primary gene in your body's cancer protection system. Seed oils break down into a chemical called HNE, which mutates the P53 gene and prevents it from working.
Interesting.
So we've got, there's a pattern that I'm trying to get people to understand is out there, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's really important that we focus, especially for people, India's got 1 billion people. They eat 85% carbs. They can't go low carb tomorrow.
Right.
There's just not enough food over there. Plus, they're not all going to become Sean Baker and eat nothing but steaks.
Well, look, I have that problem.
Cows are sacred.
Yeah, when I was there, I was talking to groups of people, colleges and medical universities, and sometimes you would be. There was one day there was like 400 white coats in this hospital sitting there, these doctors, and I'm holding court, and when I'm done, they all started raising their hands and going, "Okay, we believe what you're saying, but what are we supposed to eat?" And I said, you're not going to like hearing this, but beef and pork and chicken. And they kind of threw their hands up and went, well, thanks for coming. But, this is India, pal. That was the general consensus.
But objectively, you're right.
Yeah.
That would be the healthiest diet for them. But it's not going to happen over there.
Yeah.
So then we can go back and look at the Japanese again, right? So my daughter is going to college in Japan right now.
Okay.
She moved over there in September and was there for a couple of weeks and sends me back a picture, and I didn't recognize her. She wasn't overweight. She had, little baby fat, what they call it. She'll probably shoot me if she hears this podcast. But she sends me this picture and I didn't recognize her.
Wow.
She leaned out so fast when she got over there. So I call her up and I was like, Grace, what are you eating? You lost so much weight. I can't believe it. Oh, she's like, Daddy, I have to go shopping. None of my clothes fit me anymore. They're too big. Grace, what are you eating? She goes, I'm eating more rice than I've ever eaten in my life.
Huh.
And she leaned out in weeks.
Right.
And she knew over here that if she ate a paleo diet, she's a teenager, so she cheated all the time.
Right, of course.
But she knew if she went back on the paleo diet, low carb paleo diet, she would lose weight. But when she moved over to Japan, she lost weight too.
Yeah.
To a country with a 3.5% obesity rate.
Yeah. So
that's what I'm interested in, is trying to understand, right? Because you can't have Japan where they eat 74% 75% carbohydrates, and they're all skinny. And the United States, where we eat, 55% carbohydrates, and we're all fat?
Yeah, but I don't think that tells the whole story for us, because people are eating junk
not.
food, around the clock.
And what are the 3 ingredients in junk food?
Well,
and
it's fat, it's sugar, it's seed oils, and
Right.
grains.
And as the Japanese are adopting the American junk food diet, so here's the most amazing story. And all the vegans always say, "Oh, Okinawa,
Of course.
proves right." Okay, you've heard that story before.
Of course.
Okinawa, they basically eat a vegan diet. They're the longest lived people in Japan, the longest lived people in the world. Okay, they forget to mention a couple of things. The Okinawans ate more meat than anybody else in Japan did. They were famous for it.
Right.
It's known as the land of pork in Japan, right?
Okay.
So the whole vegan argument is nonsense.
Well, vegans, every time they open their mouth, they lie. I mean, it's...
Yeah, agreed. But what was amazing is what happened to the Okinawans, right? After World War II, when the U.S. opened up military bases there, we started shipping in, American food. They opened up fast food restaurants. First fast food restaurant in Japan opened up in Okinawa before Tokyo. In one generation, the Okinawans, like everybody, loved American fast food.
Of course.
In one generation, they went from the longest lived population in Japan to the shortest lived population in Japan.
Mm.
In one generation.
That's amazing.
The parents were all burying their children who were dying of heart attacks, obesity, and high rates of cancer in one generation.
Right. It's crazy.
Right. So I think, I think it's crucial to understand what's going on in order to both, I stay low carb because I feel better.
Yeah.
After I talked to my daughter, I said, okay, I'm going to do a rice experiment. I just feel better low carb.
Yeah.
I ate a lot of rice for a couple of months. I got a little bit chubbier around my middle, but I just didn't feel good eating it.
Yeah, people ask me and say, why do you live so strict and the whole thing? You don't have to be, look at you, you look great. It's like, you know what? My cancer should have come back by now. According to medical experts, I was supposed to have a recurrence of this leukemia within 5 years. I'm 10 years out. So, am I some kind of miracle? Maybe. But I'd be willing to bet.
Right.
Go on.
No, finish your thought, please.
No, that is the thought. My doctor told me, she was one of the early people back in 2007 saying, there's some studies coming down the street, and we're looking at this. She goes, cancer loves sugar. Stay away from sugar. And I said, done and done,
Right.
No problem.
Yeah. So just to follow up on my health issues, the stroke was brought on by wheat consumption.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I dropped it out, I would occasionally, screw up somehow and eat some wheat, and I would get the stroke symptoms again.
Really?
But only after wheat consumption.
Interesting.
Right. So I would, go partially blind. I have what they call expressive and receptive aphasia, which means I can't speak and I can't understand language. Scares the crap out of me. I'm like you. I eat this way because I'm afraid not to.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, if this is how I get to stay alive, I'm happy missing a pizza and not having, rice or sticky rice on my sushi. And small price to pay to be alive, to look around every day and go, hey, I'm still here.
Well, but in the thing, what I always try and make people understand is it's like a drug. You feel so much better.
Yeah.
Right. All of my health problems from those couple of years, including the osteoporosis, have resolved.
Crazy.
I mean, I do, I mountain bike, I fall off, I bounce off rocks, nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't, even my pain tolerance has gone up.
Are you familiar with Dr. Ann Childers?
Of course. Yep.
Yeah.
She's great.
She's another. She was vegan, and as she got sicker, she doubled down on veganism to the point where her teeth were falling out of her mouth. She was losing her sight. She had to hire a woman, an assistant, to come in her house to do things for her because she couldn't remember where things were in her own house.
Oh my God.
And then she started eating meat. And the woman looks healthier than ever.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Terry Walls. Have you had her on?
I've had her on
show?
2 or 3 times. Every time she
Yeah.
puts something new out, she comes back on. She's one of my favorite people. You know, the woman she couldn't even sit up in a wheelchair anymore. She had to lay. It was one of those lay down wheelchairs. She couldn't control her neck. And the woman now she hikes and rides mountain bikes.
Miracle is not too strong a word for that.
No.
It really is not.
No.
It really is not.
And by the way, she was in one of the top, she was the head of some medical thing. She just went, I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to start eating more vegetables. I'm going to eat more meat. I'm going to get away from anything crappy, and fixed herself.
Well, she was another vegetarian.
That's right. That's right.
She was also a vegetarian long term and didn't start to get better until she started adding more meat into her diet. So one of the other interesting things I learned in looking into the whole Japanese Okinawa connection is they did a survey of all the centenarians in Japan and all of Japan, right?
Right.
And looked at their diet. Guess how many centenarians, which is, people who are older than 100 years old.
Right.
Guess how many centenarians they found who were vegetarians in Japan?
I'm going to say a very small number.
0.
Wow. See, I didn't want to say 3% again because I used that on the Africans earlier, and that didn't work out for me. 0. Well,
0. And they found that meat intake was correlated with longevity and amongst the elderly in Japan. Meat and dairy, oddly.
Crazy, right? Crazy. Yet we get told that we're nuts and we're wrong and this and that and then beep. Yeah, the whole thing drives me nuts.
Well, and that's why I started getting into this, because my doctors were telling me this stuff that didn't make sense, like don't eat fatty foods, and I haven't been eating fatty foods, right? And telling me to eat more fiber, and I'm eating more fiber, and my diverticulitis is getting worse.
Right.
That's why I started looking into this stuff, because they're not. They finally did. I mean, the whole fiber causes diverticulitis, or rather a lack of fiber causes diverticulitis hypothesis, came up in the late 60s. Do you know when they finally got around to testing it?
I'm going to guess somewhere in the 2000s.
2012.
Oh, so recently, within 5 years.
Yes, 2012. And they found out that people who eat more fiber get more diverticulitis.
Yeah, well, look, on the consults, people ask me every day, they'll go, well, if I'm eating like you're eating, where do you get your fiber? You take fiber pills? Nope, I do not take fiber pills. Well, what do you take for your fiber? Nothing. I don't. And some days, if I don't get vegetables in, I won't get any fiber that day, except for the fiber in meat, which is not much. It's none. And they'll go, well, how do you poop? I sit in the toilet like I do every other time and crap, just like everyone else.
Well, yeah, as a guy who spends, having been sick like that for 16 years with chronic diarrhea, I pay a lot more attention to that than I probably ought to.
Right.
Fiber has nothing to do with it, and I've noticed a definite correlation. The more I eat, the worse my bowel experience is.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine why that's ever been a thing. Early on when I first started, putting the NSNG out there, the book wasn't even out yet. And there's a few groups that cropped up with my name on it on Facebook. Vinnie Torrich's No Sugars, No Grains group, which is like extra super secret silent now. Like they're really, like it's hard to get in. I don't know how they got like 22,000 people in it.
What do you need?
Huh?
Do you need a secret decoder ring or something?
I don't know how people get into the group. They go, how do I get in the group? I went, you got to go to another site first. Literally, you got to know the knock, and then they'll let you in. But there was a ladies group, and, people are always trying to figure out how to buck the system, right? So they started going, I don't know. I don't know about this NSNG. I need more carbs. My doctor says I need more carbs. So therefore, I'm eating some grains, and I'm eating some corn, and I'm eating some rice because my doctor told me I needed more carbs. So then they came to me and they said, well, which carbs should I have? And I said, vegetables. You want to carb up a little bit? Have vegetables. Guess what? Not the answer they wanted to hear. Because I wasn't giving them...
Well, you got to tell them at least it's got fiber.
It's got fiber. It's got some phytonutrients. Some vitamins in there. And they taste good. So if you want to have some fiber, go have some vegetables. But that's not what people want to hear. They want a license to go eat what they want to eat.
Right.
See, that's the problem.
And that's what they got to understand they can't do. I mean, after my dad started having his foot problem, I went into the doctor and I went into his doctor with him and found out that he had an A1C of 6.4%.
Oh, geez.
Right? Diabetic is 6.5. So the doctor hadn't told him because he was just under the threshold.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, and I look at the doctor and I said, Doc, diabetes is easy. And he's like, what are you talking about? Diabetes isn't easy. I said, look, he's changed his diet. Give us a couple of months. We'll run another A1C test on him. 5.6 in 2 months.
Wow.
Just piece of cake.
Let me ask you this.
Don't eat any more carbs.
Let me ask you a question. I ask a lot of experts this. There's a doctor. I'm sure he's a very good doctor. His name is Dr. Michael Grieger. According to him, you could get diabetes from eating a chicken egg. What say you?
He's a quack.
How does he even have a license? Well, I guess Oz still has a license. So, if Oz...
I think Oz is better.
Yeah, because Oz is not trying to kill people. All right, so your opinion, can you get diabetes from eating a chicken's egg?
Not unless you're wrapping it in dough and deep frying it.
Okay. Number 2, do you feel that, and these are all Dr. Michael Grieger things, do you feel that eating an egg is equivalent to smoking 5 cigarettes a day, let's say with a filter on it?
That's just craziness.
Okay. Does eggs cause type 2 diabetes? All right. Is an egg a 70 on the glycemic scale? These are all actual Dr. Michael Grieger things that he says.
Protein barely budges insulin. It certainly doesn't convert into... No, that's ridiculous.
Right.
Protein doesn't spike blood glucose.
You would have to eat 10 egg whites to even get gluconeogenesis to even go. It can't happen. It won't happen.
No, you'd have to be like eating Sean Baker amounts of meat.
And he can't get it
eggs, I guess. And even he can't get it to spike all that much.
Exactly. But this doctor's out there saying those things. Yet we have a doctor over in Tasmania and another one in South Africa who have been slapped down by telling people to eat meat and vegetables.
Right.
What are we doing here? Where do we live? Why are we doing this? It makes no sense.
Do you know Vinny, the most amazing thing I've learned, I think, in the last 6 months? Do you know how the profession of dietitian was started?
That I do not know.
It was, who Kellogg, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, I know that story. In 1917, a woman had a premonition. She was a Seventh-day Adventist. She had a premonition that people should not eat any kind of animal product. And she happened to be a friend of another Seventh-day Adventist, Dr. Kellogg, who believed a few things, one being that masturbation was the devil. I don't know if you know that. And having sex was, you're not supposed to have sex, and you're supposed to eat his product, Kellogg's cornflakes, right?
Which was designed to kill your sex drive.
Right. And Dr. Kellogg, when this woman had the premonition, it fit right in line with what he was saying, and veganism was started. But that was also the first dietitian, right? Is that where you're going?
Dr. Kellogg's associate, Lena Francis Cooper.
That's the woman.
Started the profession of dietitian, wrote the dietitian manuals for 30 years. Gary Fettke made me aware of this. Kellogg established the School of Home Economics, and Cooper was named its first director. She spent the rest of her career creating the profession of dietitian. So the answer is, it's based on the Adventist religion. That's why these people are. I mean, look, I don't want to slur a religion. I'm sure they're all wonderful people, but I think their dietary stuff is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Just from a biological point of view.
And by the way, I don't know if you know this
but that's the foundation for this entire profession of dietitian.
And by the way, the Seventh-day Adventists have a lot of money and they control a lot of media. Make no mistake about that. Aren't you impressed that even you would happen in 1917? Because I'm not that smart.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, thank you.
You're a very knowledgeable guy, though.
Oh, shut up. So, yeah, Kellogg started this whole thing, and we're still doing it today. Yeah, it makes no sense at all. Period. Drives me nuts.
It's crazy. And anybody who goes against them, they attack.
Oh, yeah. But you know what? They don't attack me. As a matter of fact, I'm going to extend an invitation to you. I've been inviting Esselstyn, Barnard, Grieger, Clapper. They're all invited at any time to come on the Friday show and debate me. They could come on whenever. They could call me tomorrow and say, hey, we want to be on your next show. They're welcome to come on. Did I mention Esselstyn? I mentioned all the big ones, right? Yeah. They're all invited to come on. But the first question, I'm giving them the first question right out of the box. Explain how you're supposed to get vitamin B12 without taking it from an exogenous source like a vitamin B12 tablet or pill, number one. And number two, the answer cannot be that you get a little bit of it from dirt on your vegetables. That is not a proper answer. If you can explain that, then we can move on to question number two, which is going to be tougher. And as the questions go, they get tougher. And I ain't going to let up. I'm inviting you, if you would like, if any of them ever take me up on it, to be part of that debate.
I think they've all blocked me already, honestly.
Yeah, they don't even, when people ask them on Twitter, hey, why don't you go on and let Vinnie debate, they don't even answer.
I went in to see Nina Teicholz debate the guy who founded Whole Foods, who I have a lot of respect for in a lot of ways, but he happens to be a vegan and had the unpleasant experience of standing next to one of the fellows you just mentioned in line.
Right.
Vinnie, the gas coming out of that guy was such a scary experience for me.
But hey, we want to get rid of cow farts, right? What happens when the humans start? We have more humans than cattle on this earth. We can ruin 5 ozone layers with human farts if we all became vegans.
That single guy was moving the needle on global warming. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, he melted an ice cap that day, I'm pretty sure. I'm sure the oceans went up by 1 inch that day, just in that amount of vegan fart. Listen, we can sit here and goof all night. There's something I want to ask you off the air, so hang on just a second. I have an ask. Folks, look, if you like what's going on here, look, we went commercial free today. And I'm trying to do that as often as I can, and I will continue to do that as long as you guys keep going to VinnieTartaris.com before you go to Amazon. We always shop on Amazon. Serena buys every day. There's the smiley box that comes in the house from Amazon. I don't even know where we're putting all this crap anymore, but everyone shops on Amazon. Before you go there, go to VinnieTartaris.com, click through, bookmark it, use it every time. You may notice Amazon has given me my own little store on Amazon. So when you click through, you'll be on the store and see the products that we use around here. You might want to use, or you could put in whatever you want, but it puts a little coal on the fire. It gets the train down the track. I want to thank Tucker Goodrich for coming on. Tucker, tell them where they can find you other than on this podcast.
I am very active on Twitter. My handle's Tucker Goodrich, so it's hard to remember. And I have a link from my profile there to my blog, which is called Yelling Stop. And I've got a couple of thousand posts of studies and interesting things that I've found over the years, as well as some longer posts exploring some of the things that Vinnie and I talked about this evening.
So, folks, go check Yelling Stop, Tucker Goodrich on Twitter. You'll see me and Tucker there battling the good fight, doing the good fight over there. On behalf of Tucker Goodrich, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with enthusiasm.
Check out more podcast episodes on iTunes. Follow Vinnie and Anna on Twitter or contact us with your fitness questions at VinnieTortorich.com.
Hi everyone, Serena here, letting you know that the new free Intro to NSNG guide is here now. Available at VinnieTortorich.com/learn. VinnieTortorich.com/learn.
Do you like eating ingredients in paint? I didn't think so. But guess what's an ingredient in your vitamin? Titanium dioxide. Nobody wants to eat paint. Instead of eating paint, why don't you check out PureVitaminClub.com, the purest vitamins ever made. Vinnie Tortorich makes these vitamins. There's a multivitamin and a broad-spectrum magnesium. Nothing but vitamins in Pure Vitamin Club. No paint, no silica, no talc, no titanium dioxide. If you want to buy these vitamins, and I highly recommend you do, go to PureVitaminClub.com. They're the best quality vitamins for the lowest possible price. In fact, I've told Vinnie he needs to raise the price, but he's not going to. Go check out PureVitaminClub.com. You can get a monthly subscription or get them 1 month at a time. PureVitaminClub.com. The best vitamins ever made.
Hey, you guys want to take it to the next level, or maybe you've stalled a little bit in your weight loss? Maybe you want to run a marathon. Maybe your first ultra. It doesn't matter what it is. I do consults. You can go to VinnieTortorich.com, look along the right side of the homepage. It'll say, talk to Vinnie today. You can sign up for a consult. Just wanted to let you guys know that that's available. Okay, talk to you soon.